Shut up and sit down.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Watches Etc. Today, we are going to be talking about what is for us one of the biggest scams in the watch trade. Perhaps scam is a strong word, but certainly addressing some home truths about the subject of watch servicing. I am going to start off by giving my huge kudos to watch companies, and the brains behind them, for the ingenious way in which they have created an aura, an industry, and a set of perceptions around watch servicing. They backed themselves into a corner by making quality products that they stated lasted for a generation. But then they found a glorious way of getting around that and making new revenue streams. It is like with hair gel, a product that works perfectly well, in which a tub lasts for quite a long time. But then they come out with hair wax, pomade, putty, or whatever name they are putting on the latest and greatest product this week. And it is the same stuff. It does the same thing, just with a different consistency or water content, and doesn't last as long, which gets repeat customers. Genius. And the watch industry has done the same, and here's how. Let's start with the first simple step. Now imagine that you are the brains behind Chopard, Breitling, or Zenith. Sales are down because the price for your product is high. And Rolex or Patek Philippe aside, nobody really pays retail price for watches these days. Instead, most sales are done on the used market, which you, as the watchmaker, don't make any money from. But luckily, your name is on the dial, and you have convinced your customers that your timepiece, which is made to the highest standards, needs a service every 7 to 10 years. But then you figure out that if you reduce that period to 2 to 5 years, you would double your service money. So, you reduce the initial 7 to 10 years down to 5, and then introduce a smaller service every 2 years. Now we have a situation where instead of seeing the watch once every 10 years, you are seeing it 3 to 5 times during the same 10-year period, with a full service generally costing around £600 to £1,000, and a smaller 2-yearly service costing about £300. Double bubble. Then, let's take Omega. Omega has a large back catalog of historic and vintage timepieces, which it knows its owners don't want to service. As we know, a vintage watch is worth more when it is in original condition, and collectors do not want to send these vintage pieces to have parts changed. Omega realized that they would not therefore make any money, so they had to find another way. So what they did was to say, if a watch is vintage and we can't make any money with servicing, then what we will introduce is a certificate of authenticity to verify that the vintage piece is original. And even if the savvy watch owner realized that the full service option offers better value for money, as opposed to simply verifying the watch, Omega refused to promise that no original parts will be replaced during a service, pushing most risk-averse vintage collectors down the quicker but equally expensive certificate of authenticity route. The genius of these companies is in how they have convinced the customer that the watch needs a little service after 2 years, and the big service after 5, and for vintage watches a certificate of authenticity. How much does that cost over 30 years? Oh, about £9,000. That's £9,000 extra in their pocket after the initial sale. Genius. To get away with this robbery, they of course need a 100% committed and loyal customer. Or in other words, not some stingy person like me who refuses to pay all the service. They need to create the aura that service offers peace of mind. But why do we play this game? I hear people say, oh, I pay because I don't want my watch to have a malfunction. But when we scratch the surface, this reason doesn't make sense. Take Rolex. In the UK, a standard Rolex service costs £650. If there are 0 broken parts, the cost is £650. If the watch has 1 broken part, the cost is £650. If the watch has 5 broken parts, the cost is, you guessed it, £650. So, why do people pay for a service, which is being done to avoid the highly unlikely risk of the watch breaking, which, if it happened, would cost £650 to repair? paying $650 to avoid a $650 repair bill? It doesn't make sense. I also hear people saying that watches that are not worn regularly will break when worn again. The basic thinking behind this theory is that the oil in the movement evaporates over time and would damage the movement. So yes, oil can evaporate, but the synthetic oil used in watches needs significantly longer than 3, 5, 7, or even 10 years to evaporate. Honestly, if you have a watch that isn't used regularly, just sitting nicely in a safe, don't worry. It will run properly. Relax. You are fine. If you keep it out in the Amazon rainforest, then perhaps you should think differently. But for most of us, we are fine. People also say that watches are like cars, and that cars need servicing. But take a step back and think about that for a minute. A car has an engine, has combustion chambers, explosions, and is subject to temperatures of up to 800 degrees Celsius. Everything rattles and shakes in the car, and people like to abuse their engines, revving hard and going fast, going the engine at significant G-force around corners. I accept, therefore, that a 20-year-old car needs regular servicing, but a Swiss-made watch, which is certainly not put through the same torture as a car, is more than fine to go 10 years without a service, without any problem. So, how can we decide if our watch needs a service, and how can we develop our own policy for servicing watches? My advice is very simple and very down to earth. Use your common sense. Assuming that the service fee includes parts, as is the case for Rolex, then it is probably not worth servicing it at the intervals they suggest. Personally, I would wear it until the first malfunction. That's the way it works for me. What do you think? Do you service your watches regularly? Am I too carefree in my attitude? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. That would mean a lot and really does help. And please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Okay guys, thanks for watching, keep smiling, and see you again here soon for another episode of Watches Etc.